Welcome to EPG Pathshala lecture series on data analytics. In this session on data analytics, we will be discussing about data visualization. As part of this session, we will first learn the basic concepts related to data visualization, followed by understand the need or importance for data visualization, and finally few visualization processes. To start with, first we should understand why visualization is important with respect to data. Now, in this era of data explosion, the quantum of data that we are dealing with is very large, and currently we are in the big data domain. During this big data era, there is lot of limitations with respect to the quantum of data that we are trying to handle or analyze. Manually, we cannot take control of this data. Instead, we need to have automated procedures or tools by which you can work on this data and then understand what this data is all about. Because of this reason, we compulsorily need visualization of data. Another important thing that is indicating the need for data visualization is data may have multiple perspectives in which you can view it. So, the different perspectives on a given data can also be easily explored when we are trying to visualize the same data. So, having understood this need, let us deal in detail about the need for visualization, the various visualization techniques and the entire visualization process as part of this session. Data visualization, when you try to understand the meaning behind it, it is actually a study related to visual representation of the data. So, what we are trying to do is we are trying to take a data and represent it either pictorially or in a graphical format. Data, whenever you are trying to represent either using an Excel sheet, or if you are going to use a data in a Word document, or if you are going to have a data in a database environment, it is very difficult for us to understand what this data is all about, and hence decision making also will be time consuming and very difficult. In order to overcome only, we require data visualization. So, what exactly this data visualization will do is, it helps to see the analytical results that are presented visually. Accordingly, we can find the relevance between two or more attributes or variables, communicate the concepts that is hidden in the given data, the hypothesis that are also hidden in the given environment, and accordingly we can project such things to the users or the decision makers. This will be very useful when we are trying to do some predictions for the future. So, data visualization ultimately makes the interpretation of the data very easier by providing a greater insight into the data. So, what happens in data visualization? Suppose a raw data is given, data visualization actually converts this raw data into easily understandable pictures of information that enable fast and effective decision making. Now, we have a picture is worth than set of words. That is what is being done in visualization. Rather than representing say with a set of words, we are trying to represent the same data in the form of pictures. So, for that visualization actually makes use of a mapping. This mapping is between the actual data and the visual format in which we are trying to project the given data. And why do we require this mapping? Why data visualization involves this mapping? See, the ultimate objective is we want to explore and analyze the data, and secondly we want to present whatever we observe or whatever details that we identify as part of our exploratory and analytical methods, we are trying to project it to the users or the decision makers. That is the reason why visualization is aimed towards mapping data to a respective visual format. The objectives of visualization or the goals of visualization will be making use of the existing scientific techniques for the purpose of providing a good insight into the data or a data set. So, we are going to leverage the existing scientific methods by providing new scientific insights through the visual methods or the visual representations. When we are trying to do data visualization, especially when we are trying to make use of software applications, what exactly we try to do is we try to provide an intuitive graphical interface through which users can interact, users can take a look at the data and accordingly provide feedbacks or interactions. Visualization, especially data visualization, is applied in many areas in order to enable users to get a great insight about the useful information that is hidden in the data, and accordingly it may be made use for decision making process. Various places where you can find data visualization being applied are military domain, private business sectors, scientific research, etc., and many more applications. Now, let us understand how this visualization happens, and this can be viewed with a complete picture that is going to be very simple as shown in this diagram. Jacques Bertin, who is the author of the textbook Semiology of Graphics. Semiology is the study of signs or symbols with respect to culture. He actually states that whenever you want to do visualization, this process is the transformation from numbers to insight, and this happens in two phases. Phase 1 is an algorithmic phase and phase 2 is a perception phase. The algorithmic phase actually gets some data as input and then transform that into a picture or a graphical representation, and it is from the graphical representation or the picture or a image various insight about the data is observed. This observation is called as perception. So, we require two important phases for representing the data in a visual format. One part is the conversion part and the other part is understanding part. Now, what are the benefits of data visualization? The first and foremost benefit of visualizing data, given data is, given a data, there may be different perspectives in which the data can be visualized, accordingly understood. When a data is visualized in multiple perspectives, we may be in a position to identify few dimensions that are very essential for getting good insight about the data. So, it provides different perspectives of a given data to different users or to the same users. Data visualization also makes it possible to interpret vast amount of data. So, as said in the beginning of this session, we are in the big data era, and when we are dealing with voluminous data that is automatically collected by various automated data collection tools, manually we cannot inspect and understand the data. Hence, we may require an automated way by which we can understand the data. So, data visualization helps in doing this particular task. Data visualization also offers the ability to note exceptions in the given data. Normally, when we take a data that is conventional in nature, we may only find only patterns that are repetitive, but there may be exceptions hidden in the given data, and by the help of data visualization we can explore such exceptions and use it for any further analysis. Data visualization also allows user to analyze visual patterns that are available in the given data, thereby help in decision making process. Apart from these primary benefits, data visualization also helps in identifying the existing trends and thereby help in many number of recommendations. When existing trends are identified, then it helps the analyst to navigate through the data and visually orient themselves to the patterns that is present in the data. Data visualization can also help in translating data patterns into insights that help in effective decision making, or these insights may be provided as input to business intelligence tools. Data visualization equips users with the ability to see influences that would otherwise be difficult to find. And finally, by simplification of the data in terms of a graphical or a visual format, we can reduce the time and difficulty that is taken or consumed by a user towards understanding the data and accordingly using it for decision making process. Now, let us understand the importance of data visualization based on certain examples from the history. The graph or the chart shown in this diagram was actually a graph that is generated by or composed by French engineer named Charles Minaret, and this was composed in 1781 and 1870 in this duration, which indicates the time duration of this particular French engineer Charles Minaret. What Charles Minaret did using this graph was, he illustrated the disastrous results of Napoleon's failed Russian campaign that happened in 1812. So, the graph over here shows various patterns. The width and size or shape of these patterns will help us in understanding about, say, some quantity. Whenever there is a larger width, we may understand something in large, some parameter is been highlighted here in large, and the same parameter at another end is highlighted in small number. So, this graph provides greater insight about the size of the army in terms of the width of this band, which is drawn across this graph, and it tells while Napoleon entered, that is a particular region in Russia, what was the strength of this of Napoleon's army, and when Napoleon was returning back from Russia, what was the strength. When you take a look at this graph, you may find the width of this band keeps decreasing as you proceed towards the right. So, this part, that is on the left hand side, indicates the entry, and on the right hand side this part indicates the final point when Napoleon started returning back. So, here towards this path, when you start from left to right, you can find the strength of Napoleon's army reduced to a larger extent. This is actually a statistical information which is conveyed from the given graph. Apart from this, there are many other parameters. We will discuss about these parameters in the following slides, but before that, many data visual experts till date considered this Minaret's chart or graph as the best ever statistical graph that was present in the history. When you take a look at the same chart, here it is presented more visually with more colors. You can find there are 6 various parameters highlighted in the same chart. The 6 parameters are listed down here. The first parameter is the number of persons in Napoleon's troop. The second parameter is the distance covered. The third parameter is the temperature in various regions. The fourth parameter is the height, the latitude, longitude. The fifth parameter is the direction in which the troops moved, and the sixth parameter is location relative to specific dates. So, now when you take a look at this chart, you will find numbers highlighting, say, the number of people in Napoleon's troop, and then at the bottom of the chart you can find temperature in Celsius, then you have distance information, then you have latitude and longitude information, date information, and also the direction in which the troop traveled. So, in one single chart you can understand there are 6 different perspectives or dimensions with which a concept called Napoleon's Russian campaign is very clearly depicted. Now, why this example is explained is, it is this example with which we can understand the power of visualization. So, by means of visualizing the same data, like the number of Napoleon troops, the distances travelled in a chart like environment, instead if you represent the same using a graph like this, you can clearly understand what is the quantum of information that is conveyed by such graphs. If you can do, say, a small modification to the same Minaret graph, that is, if you add a dimension called time, you can now get a 3-dimensional view and plot of the same Charles Minaret chart with respect to the time. There are few other examples where you can find different informations are conveyed in these charts. So, the chart on the left hand side is actually a graphical representation of bay and estuary modeling, and here the surfaces with different colors indicate various surface temperatures in various bays and estuaries, and this is Chesapeake Bay. Then the same bay has been represented using a polymap, and this is supported by means of JavaScript. Here also you can find different types of information being conveyed in different parts of these charts. So, all these examples will help you to understand to what extent graphical representation or pictorial representation of a data conveys more information to the user. Now, where are we currently? I told we are in the big data era. Now, the chart over here is actually the today's representation of Yahoo Finance. So, if you go to Yahoo Finance website, you can find the stock information, stock market information. Now, it is this kind of visualization that is essential for users to understand the process of stock marketing. So, whenever I want to purchase a stock, maybe an international stock market or a national level stock market, I require such kind of visualization to get a big picture about what is happening in current day basis. We can also find another type of visualization which shows the history of Chrome. So, here this is actually a graph highlighting the number of users in millions, and you can find from the graph the number of users are represented by means of a circle and a value inside the circle. The size of the circle here indicates the quantum of the users who are using Chrome. So, you can find you have smaller size circle at the bottom and it gradually increases in this graph, indicating more and more new users associated to Chrome. Here this graph is actually highlighting the trends that were about the topics discussed in Twitter environment. So, here you can find the various events having a peak, indicating very clearly that these were the topics that were in trend at various points of time. So, in the below axis you can find months like January till December. So, this is 1 year of data, and in the 1 year of data you can find various peaks highlighting various trending topics. So, now this is where we are. Now, why we need to learn visualization? If possible, you can go to these URLs and then find out what these URLs are highlighting about data visualization. Let me take you to one of the website. The website is this first URL indicated by the first URL babynamewizard.com/voyager. What exactly is highlighted in this web pages? See here you can find the popularity of baby names. Suppose if you type say the keyword SE, then it will list down all the names that starts with SE, and it clearly indicates in various time zones from starting from 1880s till 2015 how popular was this particular name. And now you can find the distribution of various names that starts with the alphabet S and E. So, here you can find Sen is one important name which is indicated by a darker shade of blue, highlighting it was ranked 41 in the year 1980. But you may also find other names here indicating various ranks at different time zones, and this kind of visualization will help us in understanding the various baby names and its trends at during various points of time. Now, this kind of analysis is what is happening in the current big data environment. We should also understand how this big data visualization creates an impact. It actually creates a very huge impact on policy, planning, and as well as disaster avoidance. Now, the chart given here is a Florence Nightingale visualization of casualties during Crimean War. Now, when you take a look at this chart, this visualization, you may find say a wheel like visualization highlighting various months here and the blue shades over here, and the particular area indicates the casualties related to these months in different regions. So, this is called as a Nightingale's chart highlighting casualties in the Crimean War. So, now when you take a look at this, you can get to know what is the impact of a war during a specific time zone based on the casualty, and accordingly we can get good insight into the given event in the history. The second important example with which you can understand the impact of visualization is John Snow's cholera map. John Snow is a doctor and anesthetist in London. Actually, in one time in London there was an outbreak of cholera. That point of time people were not aware of cholera is being transmitted through water. They thought it was transmitted through air. Now, many people were worried. At that point of time, this Dr. John Snow actually took all the casualties and then he mapped it onto a street map. So, when he did that mapping, you can see the mapping of the casualties as say stacks. So, the stacks over here like bar in a bar diagram indicates the number of casualties in a given locality. Finally, when this particular chart was visualized, so this chart shows a smaller region, the entire marked by the red triangle, and this is say a very large region where the outbreak of cholera was studied by Dr. Snow. This smaller region indicated by the red shade is what is expanded and shown here. So, here you can find stacks indicating the number of casualties or people who died because of cholera, and from this diagram they finally understood that the casualties was more in number near a pump in Broad Street. So, it was using this pump people were fetching water. So, those people who fetched water from this particular pump were affected by cholera and they died. Later this reason was identified when they found a sewage near the pump in which they found a baby nappy affected by cholera, and that was the reason why this particular disease spread by the water which got affected by the sewage nearby. From this diagram you can also see there are little amount of scattering of the casualty away from this region also, and later in the study when they surveyed various individuals who were affected or relations of affected people, they found few of the people lying in the other regions also came over here and used the water that was fetched from this given pump, and this analysis was indeed very much useful for the government to identify the important reason for the spread of cholera in this Broad Street in London, and later this visualization became a very good example for many of the data journalists who are trying to visualize data. Now, these examples will clearly help you to understand what is the impact of visualization. Having understood what is visualization, its impact, now let us understand the process. For a given data, when you want to visualize, ultimately the visualization is going to be in the form of an image. The given data first need to be given to some filtering mechanism that will help in understanding what is essential from the given data, and that essential information alone need to be projected in the final output. So, some filtering mechanism is essential to identify relevant and irrelevant. Then there must be a mapping mechanism between the data and the equivalent graphical representation. So, this process will take the filtered relevant information, map it to a relevant graphical representation, and finally a graphics will be generated. When this graphics is rendered, finally we are going to get an image. The image which is an output of this process clearly indicates a visualization of the input data. So, the data that is provided as an input finally gets transformed to some graphic form and finally it is rendered. So, this entire set of steps is together called as the visualization process. So, any data visualization will also involve the same type of process. Now, when we talk about visualization, visualization can provide different perspectives. Now, let me show you an example. Try to think about this example in terms of say a data related to your domain. Take a look at this data. You can think about say various values highlighting pixels of an image, or I can think about say a set of keywords and a normalized representation of the occurrence of the keywords. I can either think about this in a column wise fashion or in a row wise fashion, or whatever domain you are, accordingly you can think about it. So, now when I take a look at this visualization, I can get different perspectives in which I can think about this image or data. I can find majority of the lower values are available in the lower half of the matrix or lower half of this image, and all the higher values are available in the upper half of the matrix. So, when you split this image diagonally, you can find lower values here at the bottom and larger values at the upper part of the matrix. This is one kind of perception that you can get. But if I want to take a look in the other perspective, I can find in few columns the values keep decreasing when you move from top to bottom, and this is in majority. And when you take a look at the rows, you can find the values increasing in few of the upper rows. So, these are the different types of perception which you can get from a given data. Similarly, when I take a look at this data diagram, visual representation of a data, I can find there are certain changes happening based on some average value. So, we are trying to identify certain average information, color the respective positions of the data, and accordingly we can get a visualization like this, which provides a clear demarcation of various values that were captured as part of the data collection environment. Another way by which you can visualize is by means of an interpolation or by a non-interpolated methodology. Whenever I am performing interpolation, I may have multivariate interpolation. These multivariate interpolation can be linear or trilinear. When it is linear, bilinear, it involves 2 variables. If it is trilinear, it involves 8 variables and so on. So, now what happens is, instead of you identifying the average and then accordingly marking the regions, here you fix it based on certain values. So, you find what is the value in the nearest pixel or in the nearest region, and if the value is within a range, and then accordingly you shade those regions or cells. Here in this environment, you are trying to identify the average and accordingly the regions are shaded. So, with the same data we end up with 2 different types of visualization. So, when you want to achieve such visualization, you need to do some groundwork. The first thing is understand the data, understand what you are trying to visualize, know your audience, understand how to process the data for the audience, and finally use a proper visualization. So, when you are doing visualization, you need to make decisions on various parameters like the data sources, the data variables, representation types, visualization techniques, whether it is going to be interactive or whether it is going to be a static visualization, the data types and the topologies related to it. We have various types of visualization techniques involving 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional plots, contour lines or isosurfaces. The 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional plots are represented either using tables or it can be stacked plots or a scatter plot. Sometimes we make use of geometric shapes like glyphs for the purpose of representing the visualization. We make use of vectors like arrows, streamlines, particle tracing, etc. for visualization. When we are doing visualization, we also need to work on the variables that may highlight different things in different times. When you make use of a vector, we involve direction. So, directional aspects can be identified. By adding textures, you can get to know differentiation in terms of the surface or area. Animations and virtual reality sometimes may be useful for identifying dynamism in a given data, and data sonification, which is a process by which you make use of non-speech information for representing the given data. Variables related to such visualization also matters a lot, because they may provide or convey different types of information to different environments. So, to summarize, the most important thing for understanding data is data visualization. The importance and benefits of data visualization need to be understood very clearly, only then visualization will be very effective. So, data visualization process and the need for analytics and its need for analytics is very essential, and accordingly you need to choose the right visualization technique for visualizing the given data. Thank you.